We are now continuing to look at Main Street, and I'm sure you've seen this building before. What I'm pointing out here is not the building. I'm pointing out this clock that sits here. I'll bet the people that put that clock there had no idea that they were putting that clock, what I think of as the town clock, on the very corner where the town's first clockmaker located. Old Henry Wise, in the 1790s, had his place right here on the corner where he fixed and made clocks. And somewhat later, his son had a place down Otterman Street just a little bit further. It's really surprising the things that happened before. Now, also on Main Street, this dates from 1813, a fellow named Joseph Kearns was making hats. His place was on Main Street on the west side, between Pittsburgh Street and 2nd Street. And what you can see is almost across the street, diagonally across the street, was his brother, Jacob Kearns, who was making saddles right on Main Street. And he was looking for an apprentice. This is just to give an idea what the courthouse at the time looked like. It was a lot smaller, and in the early days it was big enough because there wasn't a lot of work, legal work to be done. But once the railroad showed up, it was certainly insufficient, and so a new courthouse was built in 1854. This shows that there was a coachmaker working on Main Street. This was 1832, John Yost. He located on the east side of Main Street, down between 2nd and 3rd Streets, across from the old German church. And what we might notice is the fact that in the early days there were no coach manufacturers, only wagon makers. The coach makers showed up later when people became a bit more prosperous and were able to have those accoutrements of civility like a coach to ride in. And he too is looking for an apprentice. He says a stout boy. And stout didn't necessarily mean what we think of as stout. He meant the stout boy then was someone who was well built and healthy. This is one of the things that went on in a coach shop. This was the jack plane, the plane that did the heavy work. And a lot of the stuff that we would have done by an electric planer was done by the jack plane. And the motor was human energy and muscle. This is another tool that was very much used in the old coach and wagon shops. This is a draw knife. You can see the guy's two hands are pulling the knife to fashion a piece of wood that's held in a vise. And it's amazing the level of expertise that these fellows managed to carry out using such simple tools. Now here, I put this together just to show you some of the things. When I say some of the things, I mean just a few of the things, because these things were replaced. You know, year by year, different people would show up. Some would come, some would go. We're looking at Otterman Street up here. We're looking at Main Street running through. And down here is 2nd Street. And up here in the corner is old Henry Wise, the clockmaker, who was there as early as 1791. Here were the Coons brothers making saddles. The Coons family made leather down in Dutchtown, and having made leather, they made it into useful products up here on Main Street and sold them, saddles. In the 1840s, right beside the courthouse lot was Smith Agnew, another saddler. Down here at lot number 40, in 1822, David McLean was publishing the Gazette. Right next to him, Henry Isaac was making hats. Here we have the inns Drums Inn, Horbaugh's Inn, and Drum Store. William McGranahan was making shoes. John Snowden was, in 1806, publishing the Farmer's Register, which had been founded in 1799, the oldest newspaper in Greensburg and second oldest west of the Alleghenies. The oldest had been in Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh Gazette. Down here you see Jacob Kearns on this side of the street, his brother Joseph Kearns. Joseph was making hats, Jacob was making saddles. Down here on the corner lived William Harris. William Harris was not making bricks here. He lived here. He had a brickyard down over here, down below what we now know as Maple Avenue. Over on this corner, the corner of Main and 2nd Street, would be the southwest corner, we see Samuel B. Haynes. Samuel B. Haynes was making agricultural instruments right on Main Street. The things he made were things as simple as plows and scythes and as complex as thrashing machines. This is a thrashing machine. This is a cutaway view so that you can see what was inside it. But this was a machine that would be used to separate the grain from the stalks that the grain grew on. In Haynes's time there, he actually patented a machine like this of his own. And what they did was they took the wheat as it was cut from the field and put it in, and it was turned around here. And that was the first stage of separating the grains of wheat from the stalks, which would come out here as the straw. And then as it went down, it went through several shakers, and it would refine the grains of wheat. So what you'd have coming out at the bottom would be the wheat minus the chaff. It was the kind of stuff that had been done for thousands of years by hand. And here we had somebody in Greensburg on Main Street making a machine to do that. And I see it's time to move on, and we'll say so long until next time.